www.offthecorner.net. I'm Rallo, and you are watching the Fact Project. The FACT is an acronym that stands for Fundamental African-Centered Thought. The goal here on the Fact Project is to convey some facts and some information to members of our community. It's the first Monday of the month. And as usual, because it is the first Monday of the month, we are inviting our guest, educator, author, and activist, Brother Agyei Tyehimba, to the live. Peace, Brother Agyei.
Peace, brother. How you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you well. Yes, I'm doing okay, brother. I appreciate you getting on today. I posted the link for the GoFundMe for Brother Dhoruba bin Wahad. That is still ongoing. Is that correct?
That's right. People kept contributing, my brother.
Okay.
So we just left it open. So yeah.
Nice. So
it's
you can still donate to that. And I got the link tree up there also in the chat, as well as the link for Harlem Liberation School. Now, you got a new book out, Brother Agyei, and I'm proud to be able to say I can hold this up for the camera. Wusu, a self-empowerment handbook. What can you tell us about Wusu, a self-empowerment handbook?
Well, it comes from two people that are very important to me and very important to I would like to thank all of our people. That's Brother Malcolm and Sister Sada. Brother Malcolm famously said over and over in the mid-late 60s that Black people had to do three things in general: wake up, clean up, and stand up. Wake up means developing the consciousness. Clean up means self-corrective. What's the things about ourselves as people and as a collective that we need to really change to facilitate our liberation? And stand up, you already know, stand up means fight back, resist. Asada said it's not enough to change the system, we must change ourselves. So when you put that together, and when I think about all my experiences in organizing the jealousy, the backbiting, the ugly competitiveness, the insecurity, the gossiping behind people's backs, organizations breaking up and going and talking bad about each other, stealing, I said, as we fight politically, externally, we have to fight morally and ethically. We have to work to be better people. So the book really is about, and it's about trying to get us to commit to being better people. And does not require you go to any church, synagogue, or mosque, but just to commit. I want to be a better person. The way I think, the way I treat people, the way I view things, the way I process reality, and just be calmer, more peaceful, more productive, more efficient, not wasting our time and money, investing it wisely, and being empathetic with people, compassionate, not rushing to judgment, and not being competitive with each other. That's really what the book is about.
Okay, I like that. That's dope, man. I think this is the sort of thing that we need. And it sounds like a bit of an instruction manual, for lack of a better term, on how we should be conducting ourselves. Now, you mentioned resistance, and today is Black Solidarity Day. For those that don't know, Black Solidarity Day is every first Monday of November. Brother Agyei, in fact, I discovered you years ago looking for videos on Black Solidarity Day. So it's
wow, is something?
Oh, yeah. So I definitely had to call on you to speak to this. What is Black Solidarity Day as an idea, as a concept? What is Black Solidarity Day?
Black Solidarity Day is a national day of observance for Black people that takes place on the first Monday of November every year. Or you could also look at it as the day before Election Day, when there's election years. It's created in 1969 by a Panamanian-born activist, playwright, and historian. And he was a college professor. I think he was in the CUNY system. I think he was at Brooklyn College, named Carlos Russell. And this is coming straight out of the Black Power and the Black arts movement. And this is deep because it shows the power of arts, right? So he saw a play, which was very popular at the time, that a brother named Douglas Turner Ward wrote. And it was called A Day of Absence. And the play is a fictitious play. It's a town where all the Black people that live in the town disappear one day, just disappear. and how the white residents are impacted. They're like, they realize how much they rely on Black labor, Black ingenuity, and they're stuck. It's also kind of racist because they're like, who's going to wash our clothes? Who's going to fix our, right? But it's a lot of Black people start thinking about, yeah, this play is right. Like, our labor and our ingenuity, these people depend on it, and we need to leverage that for power. So this particular brother saw that and said, man, we got to he was inspired by this idea of, if our labor and our ingenuity is so heavily relied on, what happens if we withdraw it and use it for self? And so he comes up with Black Solidarity Day. And, typically, because it was created in New York City, a lot of times, even though it's supposed to be a national day of observance, a lot of times it's a little bit more regional, but it was really supposed to be nationwide. So we're all Black. You're supposed to not go to school, not go to work. If you do go, you wear some type of a Black armband or some type of thing that's Black oriented. And it's supposed to be a day when you don't go to school or work and you're staying home, you're going to some type of community event. You're reflecting and discussing social justice, civic engagement. You're talking about the inequalities in society, raising consciousness on racism, political status, and how we need to go forward, strategizing, and things of that nature.
Okay, so now you mentioned that Black Solidarity Day is one day before Election Day. Why did Carlos Russell pick the day before Election Day?
Well, I think part of it is because, one, he knows that Election Day is going to be on the hearts and minds of everybody. It's going to be constantly in the media. People know when Election Day is. It's that Tuesday in November, that first Tuesday. Secondly, if the play is about Black people disappearing from this country, that's symbolic of Black people withdrawing and maybe either really leaving the United States, maybe repatriating to Africa or the Caribbean, and taking our resources and our labor. So it's a very smooth and kind of subtle way of saying to withdraw from the political party establishment as we know it as well.
Okay, so now you mentioned that Carlos Russell was from Panama. You had Marcus Garvey was out of Jamaica. Stokely Carmichael, his people were out of Trinidad. I mean, it's a lot of Black people that came to the U.S. from the English-speaking Caribbean, and they were very revolutionary. Like, why is that? What is there something in the water in the Caribbean that they come here and they have this revolutionary spirit?
Well, I definitely think that the educational system, many of them we're talking about were colonized by the British. And although the British were racist like any other European nation, let's be clear, they had their educational system as it relates to the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, the critical analysis was really good. And so you find a lot of our finest writers, for instance, political thinkers and analysts, that rhetoric, that ability to understand how we build a logical statement and how we deconstruct somebody's argument is embedded in that education. They, like Africans everywhere else, were oppressed and participated in resistance. It so happened that their peculiar, I believe, educational piece gave them that particular weapon in their arsenal. And that's why you see like people like Hubert Harrison and all these different people that come out of countries that were formerly colonized by British. They're some of our finest intellectuals and writers. Padmore, I mean, H. Sylvester Williams. We can go on. All of the pioneers of Pan-Africanism, all of them, the early ones in the 19th century, come out of Trinidad, for instance. So yeah. I think that's one of the key things.
What about the idea that enslavement of African people ended earlier on those Caribbean islands than it did here in the mainland? And those people, you know, they grew accustomed to seeing Black leadership and Black business owners and so forth. And so they have this mentality where they're a little bit more empowered because they saw Black empowerment, you know, decades before we saw it here on the mainland. You think that contributes to that?
Yeah, I think if you're in a settler colony, that's going to be different than people who coming up they're colonized, but the colonizers are at a distance. All right, so be clear. It's still oppressive. People, I want to be clear. This is no competition, family. Depending on where you come from, they were all demonic with respect to how they mistreated our people. Right? It's just that some had certain, because of the nature of their politics, their educational system, or their proximity is what you're raising, that does make a difference. So, for instance, in Washington, D.C., back at least in the 80s, when it was really Chocolate City, in Harlem, which at a time was 98, 99% Black, it's going to be a different politic, right? If white people ain't all up in Harlem gentrifying it, they way downtown, and this is a community of all Black people, Black churches, Black mosques, Black schools, all Black teachers. It's going to be a different political. Kids look around seeing people like them in power. You know, regardless of what their politics is, the optics, at least, they're seeing Black people running things. So it's the same with a colony. If you are living in a place like Jamaica, let's say, for example, and the colonizers are in Britain, but they don't have a strong, heavy British population in Jamaica, right? You're still oppressed, but you seeing your people in majority. It creates a different, I would imagine, a different sensibility in you, a different politics in you. More like we run stuff, even though Kwame Nkrumah would say that's neo-colonialism. You don't really run it. You have a sense that your people are in charge of things. You know, you have a sense that almost you're entitled to be in charge of things. So yeah, it has a lot to do with it.
I think also, if I could add on to that, a lot of people that come here from the Caribbean, they see America as the land of opportunity, whereas U.S. Africans see it as the land of their enslavement. So they're not necessarily as emboldened to, you know, do certain things that other people come here and do. You agree with that?
Well, to some degree, I think that European industrialists, the business people, try to use propaganda to make America seem like this is the golden place. This is the place we can come and you can get it on. And strictly speaking, it's true to the extent that the minimum wage here is more than what many people would get in their native country, in that sense. But what the people that are indigenous to these places don't understand is the reason they want to leave their country and their economy is depressed and it's depopulated and there's a brain drain and their agriculture is getting jacked up is because of America. So it's a weird. So you're leaving to go to America, and I understand that America, the same place you saying is your land opportunity, is the country that created trade agreements and colonization and all types of crazy things to destroy your economy, which is why you're leaving to come here. So that's the part people don't get. And so there's also a propaganda so that our people from other places look down upon African Americans here as being lazy, unmotivated, unindustrious, and we don't see you don't see all that opportunity? What's wrong with you? That's propaganda. And we're taught here that these people here they're gonna come take our jobs, they don't wash, they get these ugly accents. These are all, my point is, yes, to say the short answer is yes, but it's complicated. There's a lot of things that they do to facilitate this thinking.
Sure.
Okay, now so it's important that we don't buy into that. You know, that we understand. People coming here, we were brought here against our will. We didn't ask to be here. We're the descendants of the people who were dragged here, and the people who came here, they came here, man, because these people destroyed their place where they live. I mean, right. We got to be fair to each other. You know, like have a heart. You know.
Sure. So now, circling back to Black Solidarity Day, it's a day of absence, and this comes from the Douglas Turner play that you mentioned, called A Day of Absence. And that play, actually, if anybody's interested in reading it, it's only 10 pages long. It's on the internet. You could read the whole play. So, sometimes you say, hey, this is a Douglas Turner play from back in the days. Many people might think, okay, well, it's a play, it came and went, and I missed it. But with the advent of the internet now, you can actually go online and you can read the whole play. So you can see where it's going. But an act of resistance, Day of Absence, rather, in my determination, would be something I would consider like an act of resistance against the system. It's showing our validity, it's showing our value, but at the same time, it's an act of resistance that can also cause economic harm and injury to the system. And I think if we're going to transform the condition of the group, we have to cause some amount of economic harm to the system. So what are your thoughts on that idea?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a testament to Black resistance. And that's why I couched it and framed it around it's coming out of a movement that's completely about Black resistance, self-determination. That's Black power and Black arts. And by the way, this is a play. This is an artistic product that resulted in political manifestation. That's deep, right? So you have the arts that's making a college professor say, we should actualize this. We should make a real day of absence. And yes, because if you hit them politically right now, what they say, I'm seeing reports, the young Black vote and the young Latino vote can swing this election. Yeah, it always comes down to us somehow. What if you take that energy, pull it out strategically, but not just pull it out, create an alternative structure called a National Black Political Party, and you put all those eggs in that basket, and you raise your own issues and raise your own money and run your own candidates. How might that look? How might that play out? Right now, we just have them. And Black people are eating popcorn, drinking beer on the sidelines of the game, watching everybody else on the field with commentary, but we're kind of not part of the action. So we've been reduced to, I ain't voting for no Trump. I ain't voting for Kamala because she. Okay, so what are you doing? Okay, we know what you're not going to do. What are you doing? So Day of Absence, brother, actualized Black people. Took it, New Africans said, this is what we're doing. By refusing to participate and cooperate with this system, by withdrawing our support, our labor, our ingenuity. Remember, it was also about withdrawing ingenuity. If anybody wants to look up all the inventions by Black people, look it up, show your kids, and then say, what would the world be like with a toilet bowl? And maybe an iron, and maybe an ironing board, and maybe a gas mask, and keep going, and have them really think about how that would change the world.
Sure.
But not just that. How would it change our world if we took all of that and put it in our lap, in our, right? If we used it all for us, what that nation would look like. So yeah, it's very powerful, man. This idea of resistance, and it's important people know resistance is not just about picking up guns, family. That's a very important form of resistance, is controlling your money, your economics, and your labor. Because notice, what did the white man do? First thing, he took our labor and he exploited it. He took our mineral resources and used it for himself and had us doing the digging. I mean, think about how demonic that is, wicked. You're going to take the people's resources and have them do the mining, the digging, the planting. That's crazy.
That's very crazy. Now, in my book, the fact book, I define acts of resistance as acts we should be engaged in every day in an effort to eliminate the system of racism and white supremacy. Some examples include supporting Black-owned businesses, educating Black children ourselves, growing and producing our own food, starting accounts with Black-owned banks, keeping the Black family together, supporting conscious Black media, joining African-centered organizations, etc. Of course, that's a short list. There's any number of things that can also constitute acts of resistance. But what is your opinion on that definition of acts of resistance?
I agree with it. The only thing I would add is for people who, some people, brother, unfortunately, we got to talk to them, give them the child definition, as if we talk. How would you explain this to 10-year-old? For some people.
Yeah.
So I would just say an act of resistance is any act that intentionally disrupts the oppressor's ability to subjugate you and improves your chances of being liberated. So on the slave plantation, we may think this is nothing, but they would take a tool and break it. It would break tools. That's an act of resistance.
Absolutely.
Or some people said they want us to pick so-and-so bushels of cotton. We're going to pick significantly less. A work slowdown. That is an act of resistance. Unions still do that to this day. They have work slowdowns.
Sure.
Sometimes enslaved Africans went on strike and did nothing for the day. Some people kill their own children, called infanticide, so they would not grow up to be slaves. The whole book, Beloved, by Toni Morrison, is a fictionalized account of something that really happened with a sister named Margaret Garner, who killed her own children and went on record to say, I don't want them to grow up and get raped and tortured like I did. So some ran away to so-called free states, and some ran off to the swamps and started their own independent societies. We may call as Maroons or Palenques. So yeah, slave resistance can take a lot of forms.
Absolutely. So now Black Solidarity Day is one single day. We're expounding now on acts of resistance that a person can be engaged in every day. If we can't refrain from spending money for one day, other ideas are not realistic in terms of acts of resistance. What do you think?
Well, I agree. You know me, Brother Riley. I always try to complicate things just because a lack of nuance is going to lead us to fundamentalism, and that's a bad place to be. Got to always have our position, but understand that there's nuance to it. So we are a colonized people, right? So what that means, I have brothers who tell me, oh man, I ain't voting for the election. That's the white man, brother. That's the Democratic Republican. Now I know this, but to them I say, so you disavow the white man? Yes. All his, yes. Can I have all the money in your bank account, my brother, with them white man's faces on it? Crickets. Right. Can I have the car you drive that the white man made? Crickets. What about that nice house, the mortgage you got through the bank? Can I have that? Crickets. What's the point I'm making? I'm being extreme, but I'm saying we have to always remember the context is that we are colonized. So naturally, that means by definition, most of the things we need for our survival come from our oppressors. That's a very, very frustrating position to be in. So there's going to be places in our history where it's going to be kind of in these predicaments where we're trying to do this, but we need them. This is why black capitalism doesn't work. Because people are like, just why I own this support. Yeah, but if there's a capitalist construct, they have to still go to get their goods from somewhere. You want to have a farm, where you going to get your seed from? So we have to remember that there's always those things. And as long as we remember that, we can have grace with each other. We can say, well, we know you're doing your best. But if I operate my own school, if I created another school right now, it could be my school, quote unquote, but I would still have to follow the Board of Ed's general rules, even though it's mine. So that's what I'm saying. Until we have complete autonomy, it will always be that dynamic tension, man. And that's a good thing, because every time you get kicked in your behind, it should make you say more fervently, we got to have our own and work to get our own. Because it's always going to be that. It's like when you live in your parents' house and you want to do what you want. There comes a point to say, listen, you want to have company, you want to smoke, weed, and do all that. Guess what? Get your own place. How about that? Right? That's what our parents said. That it comes to that point. So you can't have both. If we in their colonial system, we're going to always be beholden to them some way, shape, or form. So the fight, Brother Rollo, to answer your question, has to be two things. We do our best to survive and to some degree thrive and keep our sanity, fight for basic concessions and reforms as we consistently are building and working to build a nation of our own. Got to be both things so that one day we don't have that problem.
Understood. So on Black Solidarity Day, all those who participate are supposed to wear black. Why is that?
Well, that's just like the color in the flag, red, black, green. That's giving people a sense of unity. When we talk about, I think in this broadcast, we're going to talk about a video we did called "The Challenges of Black Nationalism." One of the things we're going to talk about is this idea of identity and how in this century, our idea of identity is actually getting in the way of our ability to organize. So that all black is reminding you who this is for, who's involved, who's participating. Black independence, black power. And remember, this is coming right after Black Power movement. And 69, the Black Power movement is about 3 years old. So this is an early Black Power movement, you know? So yeah.
Okay, now I want to go here to a quote by the great Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. We always like to quote her.
Great indeed.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for you to see this on the screen. It's very small. She said, "We do not see the war being waged against us because we don't want to and because we are afraid. We are engaging in behavior specifically designed to block out any awareness of war, our true reality." What are your thoughts on this idea that we're at war, but a lot of people don't want to see that?
Well, who am I to dispute the great Dr. Frances Cress Welsing? So I'm going to definitely say I'm in agreement with that. I would only add that some of us have had our eyes gouged out of our head. So some of us don't see that there is a war. I don't know how, but some of us don't actually process that when your enemy is buying more and more guns all around the country, but the police working with your churches is doing gun buyback programs in your community, that is a war move. That's called disarmament. They're disarming you. But some people just don't have the consciousness to see that. You see? So a lot of people are scared, brother. That's straight up. We know that. But some of our people are blind, deaf, and dumb. They actually, it's happening right in front of them, but they don't see that. And if you say, hey, they give you $200 for you to come and report your guns, how you know they're not keeping a tab on you? How do you know they're not doing this? And why are they taking your guns? Why we don't never see buyback programs in redneck towns ever?
That's true.
They're all in black communities. Why is that? The people say, "Oh man, you just being racial, man. You always racial." So some people are dead scared. They see what it is and they scared to do it. And then there's another group of people who actually don't understand what is going on in front of them. That's why your book and educators and people that's trying to do this political education are so important, you know, to really help people, what, as Malcolm said, wake up. In today's culture, they make woke a really bad thing. It's become a euphemism for something that's whack, outdated, and clownish. Kind of like you a hotep. Like, wow, hotep is a beautiful divine word that they've made into this kind of you're a caricature. But Malcolm said, wake up first. So being woke is important. You know, that consciousness piece is very important. Some people think that this is a normal part of society, that there is nothing wrong with it. Or if there's something wrong, it's not targeted to us. But they never ask, how come, you know, I could do a speech in a white school and I could say, how many of y'all know somebody in your immediate family that's in prison? And I could have maybe 20% of the kids raise their hand. And I could go to certain black schools and everybody got their hand up. Everybody. I could say, how many people have been on in some type of probation or some type of interaction, negative interaction with police, and almost every hand would go up. How many of you live with your daddy?
Mm.
How many of you could live with your daddy? And you see a lot of hands, very few hands going up. How many of your relatives have died before the age of 50? Mad hands. So my point is, people don't understand that has meaning. That means that no, everybody's not the same. We have different outcomes than other people, and that is systemic. In other words, has nothing to do with what you eat just and what you think. This is something bigger than that. So
Yeah.
people don't make that connection, Brother Rollo, and that's why what the work we do is so important, man, to help them see those connections.
Yeah, the great Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, for clarity, she said in her book, The ISIS Papers, she said racism is war on Black people. So if you understand that racism exists, then it shouldn't be too hard to understand that we're at war. If you understand where she's going. Now, the great Huey P. Newton once said, "How do you fight for the best interests of a people that don't understand what's in their best interest?" And
Exactly.
that's where we are now. Like, we talk about GMO foods. We got PMO people out here walking around, psychologically modified organisms. you said their eyes have been taken, and that's true, but psychologically their minds have been taken. Okay, so now we are in an election cycle, and everyone's talking about electionism, and we're busy talking about Black solidarity, acts of resistance, and so forth. You did a video recently, and I thought this was key, and I have to touch on this today. 5 ways to create change that don't involve voting. Well, what can you tell us about that video, bro?
Yeah, man. And in fact, what I want to do is bring that up so I don't miss anything.
Yeah.
All right. Give me a second.
Yeah, most definitely.
But while I'm doing that, let me say this. Those of us who are nationalists and Pan-Africanists, and I mean hardline nationalists, Pan-Africanists, we often will say things like, "It's the white man's political system." True. It's the white man's country. True. It's the white man's constitution. True. Cannot deny none of that. And so, on the basis of being anti oppression, we'll take a hardline position like, I'm not voting. I don't even want to hear about them. None of them are real choices. They're just, as Malcolm said, Democrat is no different than a Democrat. When you say South, what do you mean, south of the Canadian border? The whole country, in other words, is the South, he's saying. And that is right and exact. Right? Now, at the same time, we can't leave our people. There's people in our community, brother. I don't care who comes back and talks to them. They're not voting. They are convinced that that's a political dead end and a waste of time. It's a circus, and it's a front put up to give the illusion of inclusion and choice. But some people say people are not elected, they are selected. So for that group of people, they need to know, okay, if you're not going to vote, understood, but guess what? There's some other things, that you can do. So it's coming from that spirit of why I wrote that, because I understand both parts of you. I understand my mother saying, what you these Black people say they're not going to vote. You know what I went through and people went through? I understand where they're coming from, right? Because of their politics and their investment. But what they don't understand is, look, these people have a point too now. If any Black person say, I don't trust America, I mean, that's like saying the sun is hot. Yeah. Water's wet. The sun is hot, and I don't trust America. Completely logical statement. So we can't portray those amongst us. I'm probably one of them as being deranged. That's actually a logical position to take. But I do think we need to have those people. They need marching orders. You don't just leave them out and call them backwards. Okay, you're not going to vote. These are some things that not only can we do, but we have historically done. And I would argue that these things are actually more powerful and have been more effective, technically, than voting. So I can summarize. One of the things is community organizing. is probably one of the most effective ways to really initiate some level of change. And that is, we empower local communities. We identify the local leadership. We train the local people, the people who are pissed off at what's going on and want to do something. We train them how to speak, how to run their press conferences, how to organize meetings, how to do community outreach, knocking on doors, making phone calls, getting people's emails, sponsoring events, having people at tables, signing people up for committees, hardcore grassroots community organizing. And that helps to raise people's consciousness. It helps them to address multiple issues: imprisonment, mass incarceration, mental health issues, issues of substance abuse, issues of police brutality, whatever, housing, raises their political education, and it organizes people to take political action. So these people, none of them may vote. They may never go to a ballot box, but they may create the type of pressure on said elected officials or certain candidates running to get certain policy proposals pushed. And so they can change the political landscape even though they're not voting. Then you got people who talk about economic empowerment and building cooperative economics. Capitalism isn't the only way to go. Like, we can have, if you think of all the things in our community that we need, supermarkets, laundromats, a bunch of different things, right? Cooperatively owned means that 30 people may own that laundromat, and those are regular people in the hood. It means that because they own it, let's say a supermarket, that they can buy in bulk because they got a lot of money. So they can buy in bulk. Because they can buy in bulk, they can give the community serious discounts on much needed food. And because it's cooperatively owned, more than one person personally benefits from it in terms of financially. And they're able to employ people in the community. They make hiring decisions. So it's a different approach. People who create mutual aid societies, which I suggest we get back to, that we did in the 19th century. Du Bois wrote a whole book on all these mutual aid societies. Black people put their little pennies together, created banks, created almost credit unions. Things where if somebody died, you had a death benefit, you had burial, you had our own life insurance, So thinking economically, there's investment clubs, right? All these things that can help change the politics as it relates to living conditions and having material means to do things. Education, having African-centered schools, having political education centers like a Harlem Liberation School. Their schools are designed to create educational gaps. And although they have these cute terms like no child left behind, the truth of the matter is they leave our kids way behind. I'm not going to bore anybody or demoralize you with the statistics on where Black kids are in reading and math and writing ability in 4th, 6th, 8th, and 12th grades, because it would make you cry. But the truth matter way down as compared to white folk, and that's purposeful. We know that slave masters prohibited us from reading and writing. Now they can't necessarily prohibit you from reading and writing, but they can make sure you get all the newer teachers in your school, right? They can make sure that certain you don't have as much access to certain facilities and technology as they do in other schools. So education, if you can arm people with education, dispel myths, combat the anti-Black propaganda, straighten people's spines up, teach them what resistance is and how to participate in resistance, and do leadership training, then you can have people that may not vote, but they know how to hold those elected officials accountable. They know how to challenge institutions that are racist, and therefore they can make change even though they don't vote. Direct action campaigns, this taking buildings over, protests, certain types of marches can raise some political interest and inform people. But these are things, in my opinion, all the things we're saying are things that actually led, for instance, President Johnson to sign the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act of 65. It wasn't that he loved black people so much. It was because we were taking over their establishments. We were disrupting their business as usual. We were attracting media attention. People around the country and world was like, damn, I knew it was bad. I know it was like that. And it was politicizing people who before that didn't really care, didn't know what was going on, and getting people involved. You know, Malcolm going to Africa and he's talking about what's happening here. And America is going talking to Africa, and the African nations say, well, hold on. Before we go to that, what's going on in Birmingham? What's up? What's going on in Selma? Right? So in other words, it's creating international pressure from concerned parties, Pan-Africans. That direct action also leads to what? Riot. People don't like to talk about violence, but we got to talk about it. The violence of white people against our people that we provoke through our direct action, seen all over the world, especially now with the cell phone stuff, right? And what that did was led to riots, deaths, property damage, arsons, attacks on police. And so now the white man, in a self-interest, is saying, we got to change something because these Negroes are going crazy. And that's what led to all these black people going to these colleges. A lot of these things came from people saying, the white so-called liberals saying, we have to stop this, not because it's unfair and unrighteous, but because if we don't stop it, our nation will be destroyed from within. So direct action forces a lot of concessions, although not for necessarily the most righteous reasons. And lastly, what me and you participate in, Brother Rollo, building independent media outlets and they can't just be media outlets. They got to be radical, revolutionary, nationalist, Pan-Africanist, because this allows us to tell the stories that are important to us, to highlight the voices and the struggles and narratives that pertain to our people and experiences. It helps to demystify the enemy. Like J.A. Rogers said, take him from Superman to man. When we start teaching people, the truth about where they come from and what we've done and what they've done to us and how we fought back, they're going to say, wow, we always fought back. Even when we didn't have the adequate so-called tools and weapons, we always fought back. So we have a responsibility to fight back. And there's historical eras where we won certain battles. We can win. So that those media outlets are very important. It mobilizes, it educates, it informs and inspires people to fight back. And these channels help to create individuals who may not vote, but they will influence public opinion. They will raise political consciousness. They will challenge the political. They will engage in direct action and building independent institutions, and that creates change. So those are 5 things that we can do for those who, are not going to vote.
Okay, so you mentioned the term direct action. I feel like that's a word we don't use in our community as often as we should. Voting for an elected official is actually indirect action because you're voting for them to take the action for you. How would you compare and contrast the two, indirect action versus direct action?
Right. So we have what they call a representative democracy, right? So there's a million of citizens, right? So it'd be hard for all these citizens to run the country together. So what they do is they have it where you have a person that supposedly is supposed to represent you, which is why they call them representatives, right? They represent your interest to the government. They represent this district. Of course, that doesn't work well because what happens when the person running doesn't have the interest of everybody in the district at heart? Or the person running is getting paid by some corporation to support their policies. This is how you have fake chickens and turkeys some of y'all going to eat for Thanksgiving and don't even know it's fake because the FDA accepted money, most likely, from these agribusiness firms that are found a cheaper way to create food. And they don't care that it causes cancers and deformities in the body, right? This is what happens when you see, so because people can be corrupt, is what we're saying. So in a racist political economy, you're definitely going to have people who are corrupt, and they're corrupt against Black people's interests. You know, now direct action, what happens is you don't go. I'm gonna give you a real good example. At Syracuse University, 88 through 90, we wanted our Black Studies department to be better. They made promises to our parents' generation. They didn't keep them. So we came in, we said, yo, we're not going to go to the chancellor and say, Mr. Chancellor, could you please make it better? Could you put the funds? We started there, though. And then finally, we held the crackers hostage. We locked the doors and held them hostage. We took over their meetings. We bum rushed their lunches. We invaded the history classes and said, if we don't learn Black history, y'all not learning no damn white history. And we took over the classes and sometimes taught the classes. That's direct action. What that did is it made them say, wow, they got embarrassed. They in the New York Times. They got big time honchos at this luncheon. The governor of the state was at the luncheon. Like, whoa, what is going on here? So that forced the embarrassment, forced them to say, we got to change this. If nothing else, for our public image, this doesn't look good, right? And so we got a lot of concessions out of that. But that's direct action. Now, is it dangerous for you? Yeah. They tried to kick me out of school. They tried to kick some of my other brothers and sisters out of school. They fake charges, all types of stuff happens. You can get in prison, you can get killed. But it does work. The only problem with direct action is when people got to remember this. We need our own country. This is why. When people give you something they didn't ever want to give you and still don't want to give you, you putting a gun to their head and they still don't want you to have it. They did it because of survival. That means you can legislate certain things, but you cannot legislate people seeing you, valuing you, and respecting you. So that means the first chance they get to take all that back, they're doing it. And that's what we see now. The Roe versus Wade, my sisters, they took it back because they never wanted you to have the right over your body. You forced them through very good organizing and a superb Supreme Court defense, but they didn't want you to have it. So the first chance, they're going to constantly try to take it back. That means in this country, it will always be a scenario where we're trying to, even with direct action, we're doing this, they're giving it up reluctantly, they shaking it back. And they always have that tension. Who wants to be fight? I don't want to fight with the white man for the rest of my life. I want to have my own. Exactly. I want to be able to build something independent. I don't want my whole life revolving around fighting with him all the time. I'm just keeping it real. At some point, we need to build our own thing, and our conversations will be different. It won't be what building we going to take over. It'll be what crops we need to grow over here. How are we going to build this infrastructure? More developmental questions. But they keep you in fight mode, so you never get to build mode.
Yeah. So now I say voting is not everything, but voting is a tool. And direct action, which is what you're talking about, is also a tool. Do you think that voting and voting alone, because some people say, well, hey, you have to vote, and that's all they talk about is voting, as if that's the most revolutionary thing you could do. Is that coming from the integrationists that are seeing integration with the oppressor as freedom? Is that more of an integrationist idea, only voting?
It's an integration idea, and see again that dynamic comes in. If this was a Black country, that idea of, look, if this was a Black country, when I was 18, I might have went to the military for the Black country. Mm-hmm. I might have actually considered I'm going to fight for my country. But this country, hell no. I remember being in high school. It's like if you don't sign this thing, you can't get it. So I signed. I checked it to get loans, but I wasn't going to no war for the white man. because it's a different context, right? So if we had our own, we'd look at it differently. But in this context, a lot of people, yes, would feel that that's an integrationist position. And that's a position that politically is untenable. It's not a viable position to take. So I would agree with that. Again, if y'all are feeling me, I'm going to keep hitting home that because we're colonized, we make compromise decisions. I don't know one black person I know that went to the military that told me, oh yeah, I want to fight for my country and I want to keep, not one of them. They all went because in their hoods, it was dangerous, it was drugs, it was STDs, it was violence, there was no money. So they figured this will get me out of here. I could see the world, meet some girls all over the world, and I can get some money in my pocket and maybe learn a few things that I can bring back. That's what most people did. It was a compromise decision. I can get the GI Bill and get a house. I don't know too many people that was on some Rambo mission that were black.
Right. Also, brother Agyei, you did a video recently called Challenges of Black Nationalism in the 21st Century. What can you tell us about that video?
That I felt that's important. And I want to tell people what Harlem Liberation School is trying to do is politically educate. And we're also trying to model what scholarship is, what relevant. It's not just about a bunch of fact, throwing a bunch of little things at you. Oh, did you know this? Did you know that? It's about helping you to make connections. It's about igniting your mind's ability to ask the right questions and to come to viable conclusions and therefore develop viable actions based on those conclusions. So the nationalist thing is key because we can't just take nationalism from the 1800s and bring it here. It's a different world we live in. We can't just take what Malcolm's world and Garvey's world. It's a different world, right? We keep the core of it, but we have to be able to understand the world we live in. So simply me going out selling oils and incense and t-shirts on the corner of 125th Street, it's a strong move in terms of independence, but is it economically viable? Will I be able to feed my family just on that? It means I might have to consider other things. So this is what I mean by the challenges. One is capitalism, the economic piece. It's very difficult. Nationalism has to come up with a position on, okay, how do we deal with the fact that we are colonized and most of our goods and services come from our enemies? And most of the materials and the manufacturing plants and all that comes from the enemies. And yet we have to eke out an existence for ourselves to take care of our families. How do we balance our political piece with our need to be able to eat and clothe ourselves and live somewhere decent? And that's difficult because of capitalism. Some people in our community have adopted the black capitalist model. I'm not knocking them, but it's not viable because it's very hard for black businesses to compete in a world in which, in a capitalist world, in which there's certain rules and procedures, certain access to certain power that we don't have. And so it makes that very difficult. Matter of fact, a brother that came out to Africana Studies and Research Center like myself, Brother Jared Ball, I think he's over in Maryland teaching. He wrote a book that kind of is talking about like just supporting black businesses is not enough to liberate us economically. A lot of other things must happen along with that. Keeping it down in the community, yes, but there's a lot of other because it doesn't address systemic economic racism through capitalism, right? So we got to figure that piece out. Number two is identity politics and the disunity it caused. Back when I was in school, if we had a rally and we wanted people to be there in half an hour, I'd take a magic marker, write rally at the Student Center, 12:30 p.m. Make 1,000 copies, and we had people go pass them out, and it'd be 1,000 people, black people at that rally in half an hour.
Wow.
Now, if you say black, some people will say, well, I ain't black. Some people say, well, I ain't African.
Right.
But some people say, well, is it gendered? Some people say, well, I don't consider my. So our ability to organize has been very much and will continue to be compromised by us breaking ourselves up into so many subdivisions, each vying for power, attention, money, and certain demands, concessions. And our inability to be able to say, for sisters, for instance, I'm going to fight against male oppression. I'm going to fight against, this rape and assault culture. I'm going to fight for equal pay for women, but I'm still Black, damn it. I'm still rocking with my brothers, and I'm still rocking with the family and community. In fact, I'm not a feminist. I'm a Africana womanist. They're going to have the ability to do that, and we're going to and we're going to fight together. We're going to fight on the same team against the same enemy, even as we have disagreements with each other. Even as we have disagreements with each other, we're going to still fight the enemy. We're not going to take this very reactionary position that because some brothers are racist, are sexist, and I'm not going to support what happened to Eric Garner. I'm not going to be at the rally or raise my voice for what happened to the brother who the white man put his knee on his neck. Oh. Right? That's a reactionary position. We have to assume Harriet Tubman and Asada and all the different sisters that were revolutionaries recognized and dealt with and didn't like, and they challenged what they may have seen as Black men who may not have viewed them as valuable, who may not have treated them well. They challenged them. We got historical records that Ella Baker was constantly challenging Martin Luther King, and call him, he thinks he's the Lord. He thinks he's all powerful. He needs to be challenged. But she still worked with him, you see? So we have to get to that place. My brother's one of the things that identity politics is killing us because we can't create a sizable enough base of people to follow through on any political action because everyone is going to argue from their particular bubble. So you got Pan-Africanists. And in that bubble, there's 8 different types of Pan-Africans. There's Pan-Africans who are like, no, that's just a continental concept. And the continent of Africa, where Pan-African means all the Pan-African nations work together. You got people who's like, no, it's diasporan. So, and nationalists, the same thing. So we have to be able, without losing our identity, to be able to fight together on one team. And that's a big challenge of this century. I think our reliance on party politics and the fact that the Democratic and National Party, the American government, has co-opted many of our leaders. If I put up a thing, for instance, Bobby Rush was a Black Panther Party member. Bobby Rush, right? Bobby Rush is now a congressman for many years. I'm not knocking him, but I'm just saying if we went from having revolutionary demands and a revolutionary mindset, black faces in high places means nothing. Proximity to power means nothing at the end of the day, because if it meant something, we'd be free right now. We got so many Black people in high places and with degrees and they've been here and they know this one and they're close to power. That clearly is not the answer. So the fact that so many of our leaders have been co-opted and are into the party politics thing is a big blow. And so we're going to have to, if that's what it is, then we need to form a national Black political party that's revolutionary, radical, has a critique of capitalism and imperialism, race, class, and gender, and have our own candidates and raise our own issues. We can't stay in there. If we're going to do that, we can't stay in their paradigm because it's always going to limit us. Because, political, for those who don't know, party politics in America is based on patronage. You watch my back, I watch yours, quid pro quo. Okay. So that means you have to make concessions. You have to do things you don't want to do, and you have to support positions you don't support to get any type of power in that. So you done spent 20 years of rubbing somebody's back and paying favors and getting your favors. Now you've done 20 years of damage to the community that they don't even know that you did just to get in some position. That's not working for us. So we have to re-examine if the political structure is serving us, and if it's not, we have to come up with alternatives. And then the last thing, man, is we're living in a digital age. And although I didn't get into it a lot in this particular video, the digital age comes with serious challenges. A white woman named Marianne Wolf wrote a book called Reader Come Home. And she breaks down the brain, not just the reading part from a teacher. She's a teacher, went back to school, got a degree in neurology, something to do with the brain. She says that when kids are always on the computers, tablets, and smartphones, and they're not holding a physical book, that is lowering their critical thinking skill, is lowering their ability to empathize and have compassion with people who are suffering. Think about that, what that means for activism. And that it's making them almost psychopathic. Can't think on critical issues, don't care about people suffering, and almost emotionless to people with psychopathic. What type of person, leadership class, will that produce? I mean, think about it. What type of, right? So we have those challenges. What types of kids are we raising? Or that don't feel that connecting to their history or culture is important, who don't feel that it's important to know about the leaders and the path makers who came before them, who see them as old, outdated relics of the past. What type of movement do you have with that? So that is a constant challenge that educators have to, those of us particularly who are educators in any capacity, we got to really take charge of that. We have to reverse that trend. And also it's the commodification of our political culture. So, back in the day, we wore, African leather medallions, and we had shirts, and we did our sloganing and this and that, but it had meaning. I remember that back in the day where the sisters was attracted to the brothers that had read something and had political discussions and could hold their own, right? I don't know. You remember that, Brother Rollo?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when having certain books was like the trend. Like you had to have certain albums. You had to have Dr. Welsing's book, or you had to have, Stolen Legacy, or whatever the book was back in the day. So I remember that.
Right. That's right. Now, look, it's like it's become a hashtag. I mean, Baba Daruba talks about this all. It really disturbs him. This hashtag, as he calls them. That have the slogan. They're heavy on the slogan. Intersectionality, they got all these terms, they're heavy on that. We need safe spaces. They got all the vocabulary, but you don't see the commensurate movement. If you got all that vocabulary, it should connect to practical on the ground application. We should be seeing organizations as challenging this. Instead, we see organizations as getting big mansions. I won't name any names.
Right.
But so it's kind of like this commodification of the political culture. Asada, I remember seeing all these sisters wearing these t-shirts. Asada taught me. And you know what I would do, Brother Rollo? I'd be like, hey, sister, that's a nice shirt. I'm just curious, what did Asada teach you?
Crickets.
Hello. Or people getting natural hairstyle. That's great. But understand that was connected to a political idea, not just to be cute. It had a politics to it. Even if you want to look at locks coming from Jamaica, they had a politics. They were the despised. They were the people that nobody liked in Jamaica. They were radical and they were Garveyites. So it's like this kind of disconnect. It's kind of like when white people used to come to Harlem, they eat at Sylvia's.
Yeah, Bill Clinton.
We become the new white people eating at Sylvia's. It's like, nah, man, that's not what Harlem is. That's just a little piece, man. So those are the challenges, at least that I/we Harlem Liberation School outlined, my brother. And it just means that those are areas we got to really focus on, especially with them youth, man. I think we better really take that seriously, that research, because it means that you got people that's like Trump. He don't care about It's gonna be people like they don't have empathy, they don't critically think, they can't explain. They talk about they eating people in different states, crazy stuff like him.
Right.
You don't want to be like no Trump.
You wouldn't want to be, right. So, Brother Agyei, we're almost out of time now, but you mentioned Bobby Rush, and I'm thinking of this as a future topic, the conversation about Black nationalism versus Black socialism. You mentioned that there's different facets of Pan-Africanism, and a lot of people think if you were in the movement in the 60s, then you were a Black nationalist, but Bobby Rush came up as a Black socialist. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's a conversation we need to have that we haven't really had. Not just you and I. I'm just saying Black people, period. The difference between Black nationalism of the 1960s versus Black socialism. Future topic for another time. Either way, the latest book is Wusu, a self-empowerment handbook. Now you're starting a Wusu group. I want to end on that. What can you tell us about that?
Well, you know about the book. Thank you, brother, for buying it, reading it. I'd love to hear your thoughts another time. It dawned on me that, you write these books, you put them out there. You don't know who's reading it. You don't know if they're getting the points. You don't know to what degree they're implementing it. So it dawned on me that, this would be a good opportunity to have a Facebook group. And we're getting into this book and we're getting into the discussion of how do I make myself a better parent? How do I make myself a better romantic partner, a better worker, a better business owner, a better, and not just for ourselves, but when we do this, we become better agents of liberation. If I'm a better man, if I'm honest and humble, if I'm fearless, if I'm empathetic, if I'm manage my time and my resources wisely and grow them instead of wasting them, I'm gonna be a better parent, a better mate, a better community liberation agent. So this is supposed to give a space where people who on that, they rocking with that, yeah, brother, I want to do that. You can come here, and that's what we're going to be talking about from the book. From the people have a chance to express themselves. We'll go through some activities. And just like any other type of Facebook, I know they got domestic violence group, they got all types of groups. I'm like, you know what? We need a group for this. And it's an African center, not just a regular be self-empowered for me group. But for us, what does that mean to be self-empowered? It means that you're going to be in the community, advocating in some way, shape, or form, not just doing good for yourself. So that's really what it's about. I'm still tinkering it, getting it all together. We're going to probably have a daily little emails I send to people, inspirational things. We're going to have some readings. It's going to be really good, though, I think.
Okay. And how can people find that on Facebook, you said?
They would, if they go to Harlem Liberation School, there's a brand new video. It's about 4 minutes. It spells it all out. But you go to Facebook, friend me, Agyei Tyehimba, and then if you look for Wusu Self-Empowerment Group, it'll pop up. And then you would, it's the type of group you have to ask to be a member. We're going to check you out first.
All right, you got to get vetted to get down, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, now, and how can people get the book?
They can get Wusu by going to Amazon and typing my name in. Some people who want to get it signed and whatever from me or don't like messing with Amazon, I would say hit me up at my email, TRU. See, Rollo got his sign. What y'all doing? Rollo on it. What y'all doing? TRUSELF143 at gmail.com if you want to pay me directly instead of maybe paying Amazon, so to speak, and get it signed. You can do that, and I'll tell you how you can do that.
So you said TRUSELF143 at Gmail. Is that correct?
Yes, .com. Okay. And it's like, and also the people who, when people join the group and they're an actual member of the group, like a certain amount of time, and they want to get the book, it'll be discounted for them.
Oh, nice, well. Nice. Wow, yeah. That's a good look. That's a good look. So people not only join the group, but let's get this book so we can empower ourselves. I put that email in the chat. I put your Harlem Liberation School YouTube link in the chat. I put your Linktree link in the chat. I put the GoFundMe for Brother Deruba bin Wahad in the chat. So people got a lot of information today. Just check out the chat and always continue to check out Brother Agyei Tyehimba. But Agyei, listen, I want to thank you for getting on with us again. First Monday of the month is always good. I think people are looking forward to this every Monday at this point because you always hit a
Yes,
home run. And
hey
people,
man, I'm trying to be like you when I grow up, brother.
yeah,
I'm
right.
reflecting. I'm reflecting your light, brother. We all bounce off each other. And those watching, whatever you think of me that's good, it took 56 years. I'm still learning to be better.
Right.
I'm still finding I'm fall short here. I fall short there. I could be better here. I got to change my thinking there. So when I'm writing this book, this is coming from my personal experience as well. We gotta work to be better every day in a way that people that see us could say, "Wow, Agyei listens more," or Agyei, whatever. That's very important. We owe that to our ancestors and to those who sacrificed for us to be here. We owe that to them and to our families and communities today.
Absolutely. Now, brother Agyei, on the last note, I don't know if you realize it, but you just quoted Neely Fuller Jr. He's 96 years old, I believe it is. When you ask
Wow.
him, how are you doing? He says, I'm still learning. 90 plus years old, still learning. So we got to humble ourselves and we have to always learn. And then not just learn, but let's act on what we learn because knowing is
That's
not
right.
enough. You must be willing to
That's
apply
right.
what you know.
That's
So
right.
I'm gonna leave it there, brother Agyei. I want to thank you for joining us again, and we'll see you again in 4 weeks.
Yes, sir. Peace and black power, everybody. Thank you, Brother Rollo.
All right, brother. Thank you, man. Peace.
All right, peace.